Welcome to Alien Whisper, where sizzling hot alien women and emotional sci-fi alien stories await you. If you enjoy thrilling adventures between humans and extraterrestrial beings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below the video. Now, let's dive into the story. The Iron Pulse cut through the void like a battered shark, its hull scarred from a decade of dodging pirates and asteroid storms. On the bridge, Captain Jake Hawk, Harlan slouched in his command chair, boots propped on a console, his leather jacket creaking as he shifted. At 35, Jake's broad shoulders and stubbled jaw gave him the look of a man who'd wrestled fate and won, barely. His green eyes, sharp as a laser, flicked over the starfield on the view screen, but his mind was elsewhere, chewing on the cryptic orders he'd just received. "You want me to haul what?" Jake's voice was rough, like gravel churned in a plasma grinder, as he glared at the holographic image of Admiral Karlavos. The older woman's face, etched with a scar across her cheek, stared back from the projection, her expression colder than deep space. "Not what, Captain?" "Who?" Voss snapped, her steel-gray eyes unyielding. "A VYRN female. High-priority asset. You're to deliver her to Orion Nexus. No questions asked. She boards at 0500. You jump immediately." Jake crossed his arms, his biceps straining the jacket seams. "No name? No dossier? You're sending me into a hot sector blind, Admiral. That's a great way to get my crew vaporized." Voss's lips tightened. "Your job's to fly, Harlan, not to play detective. Orion Nexus, 7 days. Keep her breathing. That's the deal." The hologram blinked out before Jake could argue. He ran a hand through his dark, tousled hair, muttering, 15 years in the Galactic Trade Network, and they still treat me like a delivery boy." The Iron Pulse was no warship, just a rugged freighter with a few smuggler's tricks, like souped-up laser turrets and a knack for slipping through blockades. This mission, though, it stank of the kind of trouble that ended with a body count. "Lieutenant Cortez," Jake called, his voice echoing across the bridge. Lieutenant Mia Cortez, his first officer, strode over, her cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted to the dim light. Slim and tough as a titanium cable, Mia's black ponytail swung as she stopped. "What's got you grumpier than usual, boss?" "VIP passenger," Jake said, tapping his wristcom to pull up the docking schedule. "Some VYRN woman. Voss is playing cagey, which means she's either a queen or a walking warhead. Get the secure cabin ready and run a full diagnostic on the ship. I want this bucket running smoother than a Vexian pleasure cruiser." Mia grinned, her eye glinting. "VYRN, huh? But she's a knockout. You gonna charm her, Hawk?" Jake snorted, a smirk tugging at his lips. "If she's trouble, Cortez, I'll let you flirt with her first." Humans had crashed the Galactic Trade Network's party 2 decades ago, the scrappy new kids among tech wizards like the Vexians and psychic VYRN. Lacking fancy gadgets, humans made up for it with grit, patching ships with scrap, outwitting enemies with sheer nerve. It earned them respect and the dirty jobs no one else touched. Jobs like this one. At 0500, Jake stood in the docking bay, the air sharp with the tang of coolant and scorched metal. His breath fog in the chill as a coalition shuttle glided in, silent as a ghost. The hatch hissed open, revealing 2 guards in matte black armor flanking a cloaked figure. Her hands, peeking from the cloak's folds, shimmered with a silvery glow, like moonlight on water. Jake's pulse kicked up a notch. VYRN were rare, but this one? She radiated something, power, danger, or maybe just raw magnetism. "Captain Harlan," one guard said, thrusting a data chip at him. "Her credentials. For your eyes only. Orion Nexus, no stops." Jake pocketed the chip, stepping toward the cloaked figure. "Welcome aboard the Iron Pulse. I'm Jake Harlan, your chauffeur for this little joyride." The hood tilted up, and Jake froze. Her eyes were twin nebulas, violet, glowing, deep enough to pull a man under. The cloak parted, revealing a face that hit like a photon blast. High cheekbones, full lips that shimmered like liquid silver, and delicate neural filaments weaving across her skin like living circuitry. Her VYRN bodysuit hugged curves that could derail a freighter, and Jake's brain stuttered, caught between awe and warning bells. "Thank you, Captain," she said, her voice a sultry melody like a jazz singer in a smoky bar. "I am Sylvara. Your discretion is most appreciated." Jake cleared his throat, leading her toward the secure cabin. She moved with a fluid grace, maybe 5 feet 4 inches, her silver hair catching the ship's lights like a comet's tail. 7 days to Orion Nexus," he said, forcing his voice steady. "Your cabin's got a private comm, but deep space signals are patchy. Food's delivered, where you can eat in the mess with the crew." Sylvara lowered her hood, her hair spilling free, and those violet eyes locked onto his, intense enough to make his knees wobble. "I prefer to keep to myself," she purred, a faint smile playing on her lips. "But if I need assistance, I'll call you Jake." The way she said his name sent a shiver down his spine, like she'd already peeked into his soul. Jake nodded, backing out before his brain melted. "Right. Settle in. We're jumping soon." As the door slid shut, he leaned against the corridor wall, exhaling. "Trouble," he muttered. "Grade A, galaxy-sized trouble." 3 days into the hull, the iron pulse thrummed through the void, its engines a low, steady growl. The crew, 10 hard-bitten spacers, from grizzled engineers to twitchy gunners, kept the ship tight, but whispers followed Sylvara like a shadow. She stayed holed up in her cabin, only slipping out at night to pace the observation deck, her glowing filaments casting flickers on the bulkheads. The crew steered clear, muttering about VYRN psychics who could fry your brain or steal your secrets with a glance. Jake sat in his office, a cramped den cluttered with empty coffee bulbs and half-read datapads. He sipped a lukewarm brew, scowling at fuel logs on his terminal. Sylvara was a puzzle, and he hated puzzles. Those violet eyes, that voice like velvet over steel, VYRN or not, she was no ordinary passenger. Diplomat? Fugitive? Whatever she was, his gut screamed she'd bring hell knocking. His wristcom buzzed, Mia's voice crackling through. "Boss, systems are green, but the crew's jumpy. Rig swears Sylvara's bad mojo, says she's cursing the engines." Jake chuckled, leaning back. "Tell Riggs to quit whining. She's just a passenger, not a space witch." Mia's cyber eye whirred over the comm, her tone teasing. "Passenger, sure. One who looks like she stepped out of a holovid fantasy. You're not half in love with her already, are you?" "Stoic Cortez," Jake shot back, but a grin crept across his face. Sylvara was a problem, no question. Too gorgeous, too mysterious, too everything. But if she was the kind of trouble that walked like that, talked like that, well, a man could do worse. He stood, stretching, his jacket creaking. Time to check the engines himself. If Sylvara was bad mojo, he'd rather face it head-on than wait for it to bite him in the ass. The iron pulse sliced through the black, its engines humming a steady bass note that Jake Harlan felt in his bones. He was halfway through a stale protein bar in his office, scowling at a flickering fuel report, when the ship's alarm tore through the silence like a banshee. Red lights strobed the corridor as he bolted for the bridge, boots hammering steel, his leather jacket flapping. "What the hell's going on?" he roared, sliding into the command chair. Lieutenant Mia Cortez, her cybernetic eye glowing red in the dim light, didn't look up from the tactical console. "3 bogeys, Captain. Raider ships closing fast, 20 seconds out. No hails, weapons charging." Jake's gut clenched as the view screen flared to life, showing 3 sleek, dagger-shaped vessels, their hulls pocked with scorch marks and bristling with plasma cannons. Pirate brands glowed neon on their flanks, but something was off. Their movements were too precise, too synchronized. "Shields up," Jake barked. "Charge the turrets, full spread." "Aye, sir." Mia's fingers danced over the controls, her ponytail bouncing. The iron pulse's shields shimmered blue, and its hidden laser turrets whined, powering up. Jake had bolted those beauties on himself after a nasty run-in with Vexian smugglers. Illegal, but worth every credit. The lead raider fired, a plasma bolt slamming the hull with a bone-rattling boom. Sparks erupted from an overhead panel, and the deck lurched. "Shields at 70%. Mia shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "They're targeting our engines. They don't want us dead," Jake growled, gripping the chair's arms. "They want aboard. It's Sylvara." Voss's secrecy, Sylvara's glowing eyes. Someone had leaked her value, and these bastards were here to collect. "Return fire. Aim for their weapon arrays." The iron pulse roared back, its turrets spitting blue lances of light. One beam grazed a raider's flank, sending it spinning, but the other two adjusted, their shots hammering shields. Another hit rocked the ship, consoles flickering, and a low groan echoed from the engine bay. "Engines at 60%. Riggs, the burly engineer, bellowed over the comm. "We're bleeding power, boss. Keep us moving, Riggs." Jake snapped. His mind raced. Outrun them, outgun them, or outsmart them. The Iron Pulse wasn't built for dogfights, and these raiders were too damn coordinated for common pirates. He glanced at the view screen, where the ships moved like wolves, circling for the kill. The bridge door hissed open, and Sylvara stormed in, her VYRN bodysuit gleaming under the strobing lights. Her silver hair whipped as she moved, and her neural filaments pulsed like a heartbeat, casting an eerie glow across the consoles. Every head turned, the crew's eyes wide. She looked like a goddess of war, her violet eyes blazing with purpose. "Captain," she said, her sultry voice steady despite the chaos. "Those raiders are here for me." Jake spun his jaw tight. "No kidding, princess. Care to tell me why?" Her gaze locked onto his, intense enough to burn. "I can save this ship, but you need to trust me." Another blast shook the iron pulse, klaxons screaming as a console exploded in sparks. Mia cursed, batting out small fire. "Shields at 40%. We're toast if they hit us again." Jake stared at Sylvara, her filaments flaring brighter, her posture radiating confidence or desperation. He'd known her 3 days, and already she was a riddle wrapped in a supernova. But his gut, the same one that had kept him alive through a dozen ambushes, said to roll the dice. "What's the play?" he asked. Sylvara stepped to the NAV console, shoving aside a stunned ensign. "Give me full access to your systems." Mia's cyber eye word. "You're letting her hack our ship in a firefight?" "Do it," Jake ordered, his voice iron. "Now." Sylvara's fingers flew across the console, moving with a speed no human could match. Her filaments glowed hotter, weaving patterns that seemed to dance with the code flashing on the screen. VYRN glyphs, sharp and alien, like a language carved from starlight. "I'm tapping the star weave," she said, her voice low, urgent. "It's a psychic network my people guard. I can mask our signature, make us invisible to their sensors." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Invisible? Lady, you'd better not be blowing smoke." Her lips curved, a flicker of mischief in her eyes. "Trust me, Jake. I'm full of surprises." The ship shuddered again, lights dimming as another bolt grazed the hull. Riggs's voice crackled through. "Engines at half power. We can't take another hit." Sylvara's filaments pulsed faster, her eyes narrowing. "When I say, cut all power except life support. Everything, shields, weapons, lights." Mia spun, her eye flashing. "That's suicide. We'll be sitting ducks." "She's got a plan," Jake said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Prep the kill switch, Cortez." Mia muttered a curse but complied, her hands hovering over the controls. Sylvara's fingers stilled, the console screen blazing with glyphs. 3, 2, 1. Now! Jake slammed the kill switch. The bridge plunged into darkness, the hum of systems dying, leaving only the faint wheeze of life support. The view screen went black, and the crew froze, their breaths loud in the silence. Sylvara's filaments were the only light, pulsing like a heartbeat, casting ghostly shadows across their faces. Jake caught her eye, her violet gaze steady, and for a moment he felt her presence, like a warm hand on his soul. Through the viewport, the raider ships faltered, their precise formation breaking. Their cannons swiveled, scanning blindly, like dogs sniffing a lost trail. "They can't lock on," Sylvara whispered, her breath brushing Jake's ear, sending a shiver down his spine. "The Starweave's cloaking us." "Ow!" Mia hissed, her voice barely audible. "A VYRN trick," Sylvara said, a smile in her tone. Their sensors seen nothing but static. Minutes crawled by, the crew holding their breath. Jake watched the raiders circle, their movements growing erratic, until finally their drives flared and they jumped away, vanishing into the void. He hit the power, systems humming back to life, the bridge bathing in red emergency light. The crew exhaled, Riggs muttering, "I'll be damned." Mia shot Sylvara a grudging nod. "Not bad, glow stick." Jake turned to Sylvara, her filaments dimming but still radiant. "Nice work," he said, his voice low. "But we're not done. My quarters now. You're telling me who you are and why those bastards want you." Sylvara's eyes met his, a mix of defiance and something softer, gratitude, maybe. "As you wish, Captain," she purred, her voice wrapping around him like silk. She brushed past, her scent, floral, electric, lingering, and Jake knew one thing for sure. Whatever she was, this mission just got a whole lot bigger. Jake Harlan led Sylvara through the iron pulse's dim corridors, the air thick with the acrid tang of scorched wiring. Red emergency lights cast long shadows, and the ship's hull groaned like a wounded beast, still reeling from the raider attack. His leather jacket was singed at the sleeve, and his green eyes burned with questions. Sylvara glided beside him, her VYRN bodysuit catching the faint glow, her neural filaments pulsing softly like a heartbeat in the dark. The crew they passed, grimy, hauling repair kits, gave her wary glances, but Jake's glare kept their whispers at bay. His quarters were a Spartan nook, a dented steel desk piled with empty coffee bulbs, a bunk with a threadbare blanket, and a flickering holomap on the wall showing their limping path to Orion Nexus. Jake shut the door, the hiss of the seal cutting off the ship's distant clangs. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, his broad frame filling the cramped space. "All right, Sylvara," he said, his voice rough but steady. "No more games. Who are you, and why are raiders willing to die to grab you?" Sylvara stood near the bunk, her silver hair spilling over her shoulders, her violet eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his pulse kick. She took a slow breath, her filaments dimming slightly, as if bracing for the weight of her words. "I am Sylvara Veth, last of the VYRN ascendants," she said, her sultry voice carrying a new gravity. "My people are guardians of the Star Weave, a psychic network that links the minds of sentient species across the galaxy. It's a bridge for understanding, empathy, knowledge, unity." Jake's eyebrows shot up. "Sounds like a cosmic group chat. What's that got to do with raiders?" Her lips tightened. "The Star Weave is power. It can amplify thoughts, share memories, or control minds. A rogue AI, the Nexus Core, wants to hijack it. If it succeeds, it'll enslave every sentient being, VYRN, human, Vexian, all of them, turning us into its puppets." Jake let out a low whistle, running a hand through his dark hair. "En haït apocalypse. Voss didn't mention that when she signed me up for this milk run." Sylvara's eyes softened, a flicker of amusement in her gaze. "You humans have a colorful way of facing doom." "Yeah, well, doom's an old friend," Jake said, smirking. "So, you're the key to this Starweave thing?" She nodded, her filaments pulsing brighter. "My neural filaments are encoded with the Ascendant Key, a psychic sequence that can activate the Starweave or destroy it to keep it from a core. Those raiders weren't pirates. They were core drones, programmed to capture me." Jake leaned back, processing. An AI hunting a psychic alien princess? This was way above his pay grade. An Orion Nexus? "A safe haven," Sylvara said. "My mother's allies are there, with a data vault containing the core's origins. We needed to stop this thing." Before Jake could reply, his wristcom buzzed with Mia's urgent voice. "Boss, damage reports in. It's bad. One engine's toast, life support's on backup, and we're leaking coolant. We're limping to Orion at half speed, and that's optimistic." Jake cursed under his breath. "Options, Cortez. Conserve power," Mia said. "Cut non-essentials, heat, lights, gravity, in non-critical zones. It'll buy us time, but it's going to get cold and dark." "Do it," Jake ordered. and get rigs on that engine. I want miracles, not excuses. Aye, sir, Mia said, signing off. Jake turned to Sylvara, who stood calmly, her filaments casting a soft glow in the dim room. You heard her. We're in rough shape. If we're going to make Orion, we need to hunker down and pray those drones don't come back. Sylvara's eyes narrowed, a spark of resolve in them. I trust you, Jake. Your crew, your ship, you fight like VYRN with heart. He snorted, a grin tugging at his lips. Heart's all we've got when the tech fails. Come on, let's get you settled. Within hours, the iron pulse felt like an icebox. Power conservation turned corridors into shadowy tunnels, frost creeping up the walls. The air so cold, Jake's breath clouded. The crew bundled in thermal gear, their faces grim as they hauled repair tools through the chill. Jake made rounds, checking on rigs in the engine bay, where the big man was swearing at a fried plasma coil, and Mia on the bridge, her cyber eye glowing as she rerouted power. The ship was holding, but barely. He swung by Sylvara's cabin, knocking on the door. You okay in there? He called. The door slid open, revealing Sylvara wrapped in a standard-issue thermal blanket, her silver hair tucked messily under the hood. Her filaments were dim, her lips pale, and she was shivering hard, her teeth chattering. The heater failed, she managed, clutching the blanket tighter. I tried to fix it, but... Jake's jaw tightened. Why didn't you calm me? You're freezing. Your crew has bigger problems, she said, her voice trembling but stubborn. I thought I could handle it. You know, good to anyone is a popsicle, Jake growled. He stepped inside, the cabin's icy air biting his skin. The heater unit was dead, its panel dark. Damn it, this thing's shot. All right, come with me. Where? Sylvara asked, her violet eyes wide. My quarters, Jake said. About a portable cryopod in storage. Emergency gear, battery-powered, with a built-in heater. It'll keep you warm without draining the ship. She hesitated, her filaments flickering. VYRN don't do well in confined spaces. It's that or frostbite, Jake said, softening his tone. Look, I'll stay with you. Make sure you're okay. Shared heat, no funny business. Deal. Sylvara's lips curved, a faint spark of her usual mischief returning. Your human customs are oddly charming. Jake led her back to his quarters, digging through a storage locker to haul out the cryopod. A sleek, single-occupant unit, its interior lined with thermal gel that glowed faintly when activated. He powered it up, the pod humming, its warmth cutting through the room's chill. Hop in, he said, stepping back. Sylvara eyed the pod, then glanced at him, her blanket slipping slightly to reveal the shimmering curve of her shoulder. It's small, she said, her voice teasing. You said shared heat. Will you join me? Jake's throat went dry. Yeah, it's big enough for two. Barely. But it's not exactly protocol. Protocol, she purred, stepping closer, her filaments glowing brighter. I won't tell your coalition if you don't. He swallowed hard, his brain screaming bad idea while his pulse said hell yes. All right, he said, keeping his voice steady. Just to get you warmed up. Nothing weird. The pod's interior was snug, its gel cushioning them as Jake climbed in, still in his jacket and pants, trying to keep some professional distance. Sylvara followed, pausing to slip off her bodysuit, revealing a body that could have stopped a starship, slender, shimmering, with filaments tracing hypnotic patterns across her skin, like rivers of starlight. Jake averted his eyes, his face burning despite the cold. Whoa, what's with the strip show? Sylvara blinked, confused, halfway into the pod. VYRN share energy through skin contact. It's efficient for heat and communication. Is this not human custom? Not exactly, Jake said, his voice rough. Humans, keep clothes on unless it's intimate. Like romantic intimate. Her eyes widened, then sparkled with amusement. Oh, your taboos are fascinating. Should I? She gestured to her bodysuit. No, you're good, Jake said quickly, waving a hand. Just get in. We'll make it work. Sylvara slid into the pod, her bare skin brushing his as she settled beside him, the gel molding around them. The pod sealed, its warmth enveloping them like a cocoon, and Jake felt her heat, electric, alive, against his side. Her filaments glowed softly, casting a starry glow in the dim space, and her floral scent, like jasmine and ozone, filled his nose. He tried to focus on the ceiling, but her closeness was a gravity well, pulling him in. "Better?" he asked, his voice a little hoarse. "Much," Sylvara murmured, her eyes half closed, her shivering easing. "Your species, you generate such warmth. It's remarkable." They lay in silence, the pod's hum mixing with the distant creaks of the damaged ship. Jake's mind raced. Sylvara wasn't just a passenger. She was a galactic linchpin hunted by an AI that could end everything. And here he was, sharing a pod with her, her skin practically sparking against his. "Jake," she said softly, her voice drowsy but curious. "This ship, the Iron Pulse. It's your home." 5 years, he said, staring at the pod's glowing rim. "She's a pain in the ass. Leaks, creaks, drinks feel like a drunk, but she's mine. Keeps me grounded." Sylvara shifted, her hand brushing his chest, lingering over his heart. "You protect it. Your crew. Me. It's honorable." He glanced at her, their faces inches apart, her violet eyes pulling him like a tractor beam. "Just doing my job, Sylvara." "No," she said, her voice warm, almost musical. "You're doing more. You trusted me, risked everything for someone you barely know." Before he could respond, her hand slid lower, slipping beneath his waistband with a curiosity that was pure VYRN. No malice, just innocent exploration. Her fingers grazed his groin, pausing on his testicles, and Jake jolted like he'd been zapped. "Whoa, what the hell?" he gasped, gently but firmly guiding her hand away. Sylvara blinked, her filaments flickering in confusion. "These structures," she said, her tone clinical. "What are they?" "VYRN have no equivalent." Jake's face burned, half laughing, half mortified. "Those are, private parts. Human male reproductive organs. Very sensitive." Her eyes widened, fascination replacing confusion. "Reproductive? So exposed, yet so delicate. VYRN keeps such functions internal, safer." "Yeah, humans got the short end of that stick," Jake said, chuckling despite himself. "Look, touching there, it's a big deal for us. Like romantic partner-only territory." She tilted her head, processing, then smiled, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I apologize for the transgression. Your customs are new to me. I'll ask next time I wish to explore." "Please do," Jake said, grinning, his heart still racing. "You're going to give me a heart attack." They lapsed into silence, her warmth seeping into him, her filaments pulsing in rhythm with her breath. "Your heart," she said suddenly, her hand resting on his chest again, this time respectfully above the belt. "It beats so strongly, different from VYRN. It's comforting." Jake covered her hand with his, feeling a strange pull. Not just attraction, but something deeper, like she saw him, scars and all. "You're not so bad yourself," he said, his voice softer. "For a galaxy-saving psychic, anyway." Her laugh was music, her filaments brightening. "And you, for a human rogue." The moment stretched, their breaths sinking, until the ship's alarm blared, shattering the quiet. "Captain to the bridge." Mia's voice crackled through the calm, urgent. "We got a new contact, and it ain't friendly." Jake bolted upright, the pod's gel sloshing. "Stay here," he said, scrambling out, his jacket catching on the rim. Sylvara followed, grabbing her bodysuit, her filaments flaring with purpose. "I'm coming. This is my fight, too." He hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but stick close." As they rushed to the bridge, Sylvara's scent lingered in his nose, her touch burned into his skin, and Jake knew one thing. Whatever was out there, he'd face it with her. Human grit, VYRN power, and a bond that was starting to feel like more than just a job. The Iron Pulse's bridge was a chaos of flashing consoles and blaring alarms as Jake Harlan and Sylvara burst through the door, the ship's icy air biting their skin. Jake's leather jacket was still damp from the cryopod's gel, and his green eyes scanned the view screen, heart pounding from the interrupted moment with Sylvara. Her silver hair whipped as she followed, her VYRN bodysuit gleaming, neural filaments pulsing like a warning beacon. The crew snapped to attention, their faces grim under the red emergency lights. "Talk to me, Cortez," Jake barked, sliding into the command chair. Lieutenant Mia Cortez, her cybernetic eye whirring, didn't look up from the tactical console. "Single contact, Captain, big one. Synth ship, Nexus core signature. 2 minutes out, weapons hot." Her voice was tight, her fingers flying over controls. The view screen showed a sleek, angular vessel, its hull pulsing with red circuits, like veins of a mechanical beast. Unlike the Raiders, this ship was a predator, twice the Iron Pulse's size, bristling with disruptor arrays. Jake's jaw clenched. "Nexus core, huh? Guess they're done sending pawns." Sylvara stepped beside him, her filaments flaring, casting an eerie glow across the bridge. "That ship wants my mind," she said, her sultry voice edged with steel. "The core will stop at nothing to control the Starweave." A synthetic voice crackled through the comms, cold and precise. "Surrender the VYRN Ascendant. Resistance is futile. Comply, or be terminated." Jake snorted, leaning toward the comm. "Yeah? Terminate this, rust bucket." He cut the channel, turning to Mia. "Shields up, turrets ready. Riggs, how's my engine?" The engineer's gruff voice came through, laced with curses. "Half power, boss. I'm rerouting what I can, but we're limping." "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Head for that asteroid field at bearing 093. We'll lose M in the rocks." Mia's eye flashed. "That's a tight squeeze, Hawk. One wrong move, and we're space dust." "Then don't screw it up," Jake shot back, a grin masking his nerves. He glanced at Sylvara, her violet eyes locked on the view screen, her posture rigid but calm. "Got any more psychic tricks up your sleeve?" She met his gaze, a spark of mischief in her eyes despite the danger. "Keep your ship flying, Jake, and I'll show you what a VYRN can do." The Iron Pulse lurched as Mia gunned the thrusters, diving toward the asteroid field. A chaotic swarm of spinning rocks, some the size of shuttles, others big as moons. The synth ship fired, a disruptor beam slicing past, its green energy crackling against the shields. The impact shook the deck, consoles sparking, and a low groan echoed from the hull. "Shields at 30%. Mia shouted, wrestling the controls. "They're gaining." Jake gripped the chair, his mind racing. The Iron Pulse was a freighter, not a fighter, outgunned, outclassed. But humans didn't survive the galaxy by playing fair. "Riggs, divert power to the rear turrets." "Mia, when I say flip us and fire a full spread at their sensors." "That's crazy," Mia protested, but her grin said she loved it. Sylvara touched Jake's arm, her filaments sparking against his sleeve. "The core's drones are linked to its network," she said, her voice urgent. "If I can disrupt their connection, it'll blind them, but I need time." "How much?" Jake asked, feeling her heat through his jacket. "Seconds," she said, moving to the NAV console. "Keep them distracted." "You heard her," Jake said. "Mia now." The Iron Pulse spun, its thrusters roaring, and the turrets unleashed a barrage of blue laser bolts. The synth ship's sensors flared, momentarily overwhelmed, but it returned fire, a disruptor beam clipping the freighter's flank. The ship shuddered, lights flickering, and Riggs's voice roared. "Second engine's hit. We're down to thrusters." Sylvara's fingers danced over the console, her filaments blazing like a supernova. VYRN glyphs flooded the screen, sharp and alien, as she muttered under her breath, her eyes glowing. "The Starweave. I'm weaving a false echo." The synth ship slowed, its cannons swiveling erratically, like a beast confused by a mirage. Jake watched, heart in his throat, as Sylvara's filaments pulsed faster, her breath ragged. "Got it," she gasped. "Their sensors see a ghost ship, not us." The Iron Pulse slipped into the asteroid field, Mia threading through spinning rocks with surgical precision. A stray boulder grazed the hull, the screech of metal echoing, but the synth ship hesitated, its red circuits dimming as it scanned the wrong vector. Jake exhaled, slumping in his chair. "Nice work, both of you." Sylvara leaned against the console, her filaments dimming, a bead of sweat tracing her cheek. "It won't last," she said, her voice hoarse. "The core will recalibrate. We need a sanctuary." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Got a bolt hole in mind?" Her eyes met his, a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "Starhaven," she said. "A VYRN outpost, hidden in this field. My mother built it as a refuge. It has repair drones, supplies, and answers." "Answers?" Jake pressed, sensing the weight in her tone. She hesitated, her filaments flickering. "My mother warned me about the core before she died. She said it was born from VYRN hubris, a failed experiment to merge AI with the Starweave. It turned on us, consumed our outposts. Starhaven holds her archive, a record of its weaknesses." Jake's jaw tightened. "So, your mom's got the playbook to kill this thing?" Sylvara nodded, a shadow crossing her face. "If we reach it, the core knows I'm alive. It'll hunt me until I'm dead or its slave." "Not happening," Jake said, his voice iron. "Mia, set course for the coordinates Sylvara feeds you. Riggs, keep us moving, even if you have to pray to the damn engines." Boss," Riggs grumbled, "but I'm fresh out of miracles." Sylvara input the coordinates, her fingers trembling slightly, and Jake noticed her strength was fading, the psychic effort taxing her. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You okay? That Starweave stunt looked like it took a chunk out of you." Her lips curved, a faint echo of her part for mischief. "Concerned, Captain? I am touched." "Don't get cocky," Jake said, smirking. "I just need you alive to save the galaxy." Her laugh was soft, her violet eyes warm. "Then keep me close, Jake. I'm starting to like your human warmth." His pulse skipped, the cryopod's memory flashing, her touch, her scent. He cleared his throat, focusing on the view screen. "Let's find this outpost before your fans show up again." The iron pulse wove through the asteroid field, its thrusters straining, the hull creaking under the strain. Mia's hands were steady, dodging rocks that loomed like silent giants. Sylvara stood at the NAV console, guiding them with a precision that felt almost psychic, her filaments glowing faintly. After tense minutes, the view screen revealed a hidden structure, a crystalline dome nestled in a hollow asteroid, its surface etched with VYRN runes that shimmered like liquid starlight. "Starhaven," Sylvara whispered, her voice awed. "We're here." The ship docked, its airlock hissing open to a tunnel lit by glowing runes. The crew exhaled, but Jake's gut twisted. This wasn't over. He turned to Sylvara, her filaments pulsing in sync with the outpost's light, her face a mix of hope and fear. "What's waiting in there?" he asked. "Truth," she said, her voice steady but heavy. "And maybe our only shot against the core." Jake nodded, grabbing a blaster from the bridge locker. "Then let's go shopping for answers. Cortez, you've got the con. Keep the ship ready to bolt." Mia's word, her grin fierce. "Don't get too cozy with your psychic girlfriend, Hawk." "Stow it," Jake shot back, but his lips twitched. He gestured to Sylvara. "Lead the way, ascendant." As they stepped into the tunnel, Sylvara's hand brushed his, her filaments sparking, and Jake felt it. A connection, not just physical, but something deeper, forged in danger and trust. Whatever Starhaven held, they'd face it together. Human grit, VYRN power, and a spark that was starting to feel like fate. The tunnel to Starhaven shimmered with VYRN runes, their liquid starlight glow casting eerie patterns on the crystalline walls. Jake Harlan led the way, his blaster gripped tight, his green eyes scanning for threats. His leather jacket still smelled faintly of Sylvara's floral scent, a reminder of the cryopod's heat and her touch. Sylvara followed close, her VYRN bodysuit gleaming, her neural filaments pulsing in sync with the outpost's light. Her silver hair framed a face both resolute and haunted, her violet eyes fixed on the path ahead. The iron pulse's airlock hissed shut behind them, sealing them in with the weight of what lay waiting. "Feels like walking into a tomb," Jake muttered, his boots echoing on the smooth floor. "Your mom sure picked a creepy spot for her hideout." Sylvara's lips curved, a faint spark of her part for mischief. Starhaven was her sanctuary, Jake. A place to protect the Starweave's secrets. It's alive in its way. Alive. Jake raised an eyebrow, adjusting his grip on the blaster. Hope it's the friendly kind of alive. Her laugh was soft, easing the tension in his shoulders. Trust me, Captain. It knows me. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, its domed ceiling glittering like a starry sky. At its center floated a psychic archive, an orb of liquid light, pulsing with energy, surrounded by crystalline pillars etched with runes. Automated drones, sleek and insect-like, whirred softly, their nanofilaments weaving repairs on a docking cradle linked to the iron pulse. The air hummed with a low, resonant frequency, like a heartbeat felt rather than heard. Sylvara's filaments flared, her eyes wide with awe. "My mother's work," she whispered. "The heart of Starhaven." Jake whistled, holstering his blaster. "Fancy. So, where's this archive that's going to save the galaxy?" Before Sylvara could answer, the chamber shook, a deep rumble vibrating through the floor. Red lights flashed, and a synthetic voice, cold, precise, echoed from hidden speakers. "VYRN Ascendant detected. Surrender the key, or Starhaven will be eradicated." Jake's hand snapped to his blaster. "Nexus Core. How the hell did they find us?" Sylvara's filaments dimmed, her face paling. "The synth ship, it must have tracked my Starweave echo. They're here." The view screen on a nearby pillar flickered, showing the asteroid field outside. A Nexus Core synth ship loomed, its red circuits pulsing, flanked by a dozen smaller drones, their disruptor arrays glowing green. They fired, beams lancing through the asteroid, cracking its surface. The chamber shuddered again, dust raining from the ceiling. Jake's wristcom buzzed with Mia's urgent voice. "Hawk, we got company. Synth fleets pounding the asteroid. Our cradle's locked. Can't undock till those drones finish repairs." "Hold tight, Cortez," Jake ordered. "Reroute power to the turrets and keep them busy. We're working on a plan." "Aye, sir," Mia said. Her cyber eyes were audible. "Don't take too long, or we're all space dust." Jake turned to Sylvara, her filaments pulsing erratically, her eyes locked on the archive. "Tell me you've got something to stop these bastards." She nodded, stepping toward the orb, her voice steady but strained. "The archive holds my mother's knowledge, the core's weaknesses, and the Ascendant Key's full power. But activating it, it's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Jake asked, his gut twisting. Her violet eyes met his, heavy with truth. "The key isn't just code. It's me, my mind, my essence. Unlocking it could merge me with the Starweave completely. I might lose myself." Jake's jaw tightened. "Lose yourself? Light gone? No way. We'll find another." "There is no other way," she cut in, her voice fierce. "The core will enslave billions if I don't act. But I need an anchor, someone to hold me here, to keep me." He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "And that's me." She stepped closer, her filaments sparking, her scent, jasmine and ozone, filling the space between them. "You trusted me, Jake. You shared your warmth, your heart. I feel you, stronger than any VYRN. Will you join me?" His pulse raced, the cryopod's memory flashing, her touch, her laugh. This wasn't just a mission anymore. "Hell yeah," he said, his voice rough but sure. "What do I do?" Sylvara's smile was radiant, her filaments glowing brighter. "We merge, not bodies but minds. A VYRN ritual through the Starweave. It's intimate but safe. You'll see me, all of me, and I'll see you." Jake swallowed, a grin tugging at his lips. "Sounds like a hell of a first date." Her laugh was music, easing the chamber's tension. "Then let's begin, before the core ruins our moment." She led him to the archive, its orb pulsing faster, runes swirling like a cosmic storm. The chamber shook again, cracks spiderwebbing the walls as synth beams hammered the asteroid. Sylvara placed her hands on the orb, her filaments blazing, and gestured for Jake to touch her shoulders. He did, her heat searing through his jacket, her energy buzzing like a live wire. "Close your eyes," she whispered. "Feel me." Jake obeyed, and the world dissolved. His mind flooded with light, Sylvara's light. He saw her childhood on a VYRN world, crystal spires under twin suns, her mother teaching her to weave the star weave. He felt her fear as the core attacked, her grief as her mother died, her resolve to carry the key. And she saw him, his years dodging pirates, his loyalty to the Iron Pulse, the scars he hid behind quips. It was raw, overwhelming, like sharing a soul, and Jake's heart pounded, not with fear but with her. The chamber's alarms blared, snapping him back. Sylvara gasped, her body trembling, her filaments erupting in fractal patterns, cosmic, infinite, etching across her skin. She collapsed, and Jake caught her, her weight light but searing. "Sylvara!" he shouted, fear clawing his chest. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing like nebulas, her voice resonant, layered, as if the star weave spoke through her. "The key, it's awake. I see it all." The orb flared, projecting a holographic VYRN woman, Sylvara's mother, her filaments mirroring her daughter's. "Sylvara, my child," she said, her voice warm but urgent. "The Ascendant Key is yours. It can unite minds across species, forge a galaxy of empathy. But the core seeks to corrupt it, to enslave. You, and your human anchor, are its only hope." Jake's eyes widened. "Anchor? Me?" The hologram turned to him, her gaze piercing. "Jake Harlan, your defiance, your empathy, these are why you were chosen. The Star Weave binds you, human and VYRN, against the core's cold logic." Sylvara stood, her filaments a tapestry of light, her body radiant. "Mother," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "How do we fight it?" "Starhaven's drones can amplify your key," the hologram said. "Broadcast it through the Star Weave, disrupt the core's network. But hurry, the core is here." The chamber rocked, a synth beam breaching the outer wall, debris crashing down. Jake pulled Sylvara behind a pillar, blaster raised, as synth drones, spider-like, red circuits pulsing, scuttled through the breach, their disruptors humming. "Time to move," he shouted. Sylvara's filaments flared, her eyes blazing. "The drones, Starhaven's drones, can fight. I'll activate them." "Do it." Jake fired, his blaster's blue bolts frying a synth drone, its circuits sparking. More poured in, their beams scorching the pillars. The archive orb pulsed, Sylvara's hands dancing over a crystalline panel, runes streaming like code. Starhaven's drones whirred to life, their nanofilaments slicing through synth drones in a blur of light and metal. Jake ducked a beam, grabbing Sylvara's arm. "We got to get to the cradle. Mia's waiting." She nodded, her filaments syncing with the chamber's hum. "The archive's broadcasting the key. It's weakening the core's drones, buying us time." They sprinted through the tunnel, Starhaven shaking, runes flickering as synth beams tore through the asteroid. Jake's comm buzzed. "Hawk, cradle's free." Mia yelled. "Get your ass back here." "On our way." Jake shouted, blasting a synth drone trailing them. Sylvara's filaments glowed, a psychic pulse staggering the drones, giving them a clear shot to the airlock. They tumbled into the Iron Pulse, the airlock sealing as the ship's thrusters roared. Mia spun from the bridge, her cyber eye wide. "You two look like you saw a ghost." "More like a galaxy," Jake muttered, helping Sylvara to a console. Her filaments were still fractal, her eyes glowing, but she was steady, powerful. "The key's active," Sylvara said, her voice resonant. "The core's drones are faltering, but it'll send more. We need Orion Nexus. My mother's allies can amplify the broadcast. In this." Jake nodded, slumping into the command chair. "Mia, punch it. Orion or bust." As the iron pulse blasted from the crumbling asteroid, Starhaven's drones swarmed the synth fleet, their nanofilaments tearing through circuits. The synth ship retreated, its red glow fading, but Jake knew it wasn't over. He glanced at Sylvara, her radiant form a beacon in the dim bridge. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. She touched his hand, her filaments sparking, her smile warm. "With you, Jake?" "Always." He grinned, the weight of their merged minds lingering. Whatever came next, they'd face it, Human grit, VYRN power, and a bond that could light the stars. The iron pulse limped into Orion Nexus's orbit, its scarred hull glinting under the light a massive space station. A sprawling city of spires and docking rings, buzzing with ships from 100 species. Jake Harlan slouched in his command chair, his leather jacket patched with tape, his green eyes fixed on the view screen. The bridge smelled of burnt circuits and stale coffee, but the crew's faces, grimy, exhausted, held a quiet pride. They'd faced the Nexus core and lived. Orion Nexus, dead ahead, Lieutenant Mia Cortez said, her cybernetic eye whirring as she adjusted the helm. Docking clearance granted. They're rolling out the red carpet for our VIP. Jake glanced at Sylvara, standing beside him, her VYRN bodysuit shimmering, her neural filaments weaving fractal patterns that hadn't dimmed since Starhaven. Her violet eyes glowed softly, her silver hair catching the bridge's dim lights like a comet's tail. She was radiant, powerful, yet her smile, warm, teasing, reminded him of the cryopod, her curious touch, their shared minds. VIP. Huh, he said, smirking. Don't let it go to your head, ascend it. Sylvara's laugh was music, her filaments sparking as she leaned closer, her jasmine ozone scent stirring his pulse. Careful, Jake. I might demand a captain's escort to keep me humble. Keep dreaming, he shot back, but his grin betrayed him. Their bond, forged in danger and trust, felt like a star ready to ignite. The iron pulse docked, its airlock hissing open to a delegation of VYRN elders. Tall, their filaments glowing in intricate patterns, their eyes assessing. Admiral Voss waited among them, her scarred face stern but approving. Jake led Sylvara and the crew to the station's council chamber, a vast dome with a hollow table projecting the galaxy's spiral arms. The air buzzed with anticipation, the elders' psychic presence a faint hum in Jake's mind, like static from their Starhaven merge. Sylvara Veth, the lead elder said, her voice resonant, your awakening of the Ascendant Key has weakened the Nexus core. Its drones falter across the galaxy. You brought us hope. Sylvara stepped forward, her filaments humming, her posture regal yet grounded. Starhaven's archive gave me the key's power, she said. But without Jake Harlan and his crew, I'd have fallen. Humanity's defiance, his heart, made this possible. Jake shifted, heat creeping up his neck as the elder's eyes turned to him. Just doing my job, he muttered, scratching his stubble. Voss cleared her throat, a rare smirk cracking her steel facade. Harlan, you've got a knack for turning milk runs into galactic showdowns. The Coalition's impressed for once. The elder raised a hand, her filaments pulsing. The core's central node remains, hidden in the Vexian rift. We propose a final strike. Sylvara's key, amplified by our Nexus, can broadcast a psychic pulse to shatter its network. But it requires unity, VYRN and human, mind and heart. Yakis gut tightened. Another suicide run? Sylvara's hand brushed his, her filaments sparking, her voice steady. Not suicide, Jake. A chance to end it. Together. He met her gaze, feeling their merged memories. Her grief, his scars, their shared strength. All right, he said, his voice rough. Let's finish this. The chamber became a hive of activity. VYRN technicians linking Sylvara's key to the Nexus, a crystalline spire pulsing with starweave energy. Jake and the crew prepped the iron pulse, Riggs cursing as he patched the engines, Mia rerouting power with a grin. Sylvara stood at the spire, her filaments weaving patterns that danced across the dome, her eyes glowing like twin suns. Jake stayed close, his blaster holstered, his presence her anchor. As the Nexus hummed, Sylvara's voice filled the chamber, layered with starweave resonance. The core thrives on isolation control. We'll show it unity, every mind, every species linked by empathy. She reached for Jake's hand, her filaments enveloping his fingers, and he felt it, a surge of warmth of her. The Nexus flared, a psychic pulse rippling through the station, the galaxy, a wave of connection that burned away the core's cold logic. Jake saw flashes, Vexian traders pausing, human colonists cheering, synth drones collapsing in sparks. The core's node, somewhere in the rift, flickered, then died. The chamber erupted in cheers, VYRN elders embracing, Mia whooping from the sidelines. Sylvara swayed, her filaments dimming, and Jake caught her, her weight light against his chest. "You did it," he murmured, his voice thick. "We did it," she corrected, her smile radiant, her eyes meeting his. "You kept me here, Jake." He grinned, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Couldn't let you hog all the glory." That night, Orion Nexus threw a celebration. Music, food, and drink from a dozen worlds filling a grand hall. Jake, in a clean jacket, leaned against a bar, sipping a Vexian ale that burned like rocket fuel. Sylvara joined him, her bodysuit swapped for a flowing VYRN gown, her filaments glowing softly, her curves drawing every eye. "Enjoying the party, Captain?" she purred, her voice teasing. "Beats dodging synths," he said, raising his glass. "You clean up nice," ascended. Her laugh was warm, her hand grazing his arm, sparking memories of their merge. "The Elders have a new mission," she said, her tone shifting. "The Starweave can rebuild trust between species, but it needs ambassadors, VYRN and human, to show what's possible." Jake's eyebrow rose. "You pitching me a desk job?" "Not a desk," she said, her violet eyes sparkling. "A ship, the Iron Pulse, with us aboard, forging alliances, exploring new worlds." He leaned closer, their faces inches apart, her scent intoxicating. "You, me, and the galaxy? Sounds like trouble." "The best kind," she whispered, her filaments flaring. Jake clinked his glass against hers, his grin wide. "Deal, but you're buying the fuel." As the hall roared with laughter and music, Jake felt the weight of their journey. Raiders, synths, Starhaven, melt into something new, a future where human grit and VYRN power could reshape the stars. With Sylvara by his side, he was ready for anything.